EiE, Nigeria's #OnePerson campaign, recognizes citizens who go beyond words to act. Now, in January 2025, of course, just some months back, EiE Nigeria honored Doreen Omosele for her commitment to the rehabilitation and integration of women involved in sex work. I beg your pardon. Her work with the Blossom Girls Outreach Foundation demonstrates that true impact of advocacy lies in what comes next. Now, the hard, consistent work of rebuilding lives. Joining me to shed more light on this issue is the Executive Director, Blossom Girls Outreach Foundation, Doreen Omosele. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation tonight.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Yes, please. I hope I got the pronunciation of your name correctly.
Yeah, you tried. Doreen Omosele, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I've been very worried about that. Okay, so let's start with the beginning, at the heart of your journey. What really inspired you to start working with women in sex, and were there personal or societal gaps that you saw that made you, push towards this particular space?
Okay, so for me, it's a bit of, a personal thing. I was that child who was molested at a tender age. So I grew up seeing myself as a sex object. That was the mindset that I have, that I had about myself, that I was a sex object, I was a sex tool. So I practically lived my life like that, up till university, when I rediscovered myself and who I am. So in the midst of the rediscovering myself, I also discovered that I have a purpose along this line to help girls who are stuck in sex trade, girls who are, being sexually exploited, and just helping them find a better life and an alternate path to income, generation. Yeah.
I must really say, sorry that you have to go through what you went through. Very big apologies. Well, but in a society where sex work is heavily stigmatized, I'm just thinking, what has it been, what has it been like, the hardest part of starting out? What has kept you going? What are the challenges that you've faced, in this space, in what you're doing?
Okay. Yes, you're right. Sex work is stigmatized, in the world, not to even talk of Africa and even Nigeria. What has kept me going is not just passion, but conviction. I am very convinced that this is what I was born to do. Okay, you may call it, some spiritual conviction or, whatever conviction, but I am very convinced that this is what I was born to do. And conviction, together with the passion for these girls, has kept me going. Talking about challenges, at the beginning, lack of, funds, was one of the challenges that we faced. It even delayed us in moving from reaching out to the girls in Brutels to setting up the rehabilitation center. But yeah, God helped us. We were able to establish the rehabilitation center 2023 September. And currently right now we're expanding, our rehab home to accommodate 10 of these girls. We did 4 at the beginning of the first session. So now we're extending, our capacity to do 10 this time around. And God has been helping us, to be honest. Now we have more people that have seen that, oh, these people, they're really doing the work. They've seen the results. They've seen the testimonies. And now we have people who are partnering, who are giving, so it's really been a great time. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the crux of, the conversation. Can you walk us through how your organization practically supports rehabilitation reintegration of women that are involved in sex work? Because, I mean, when I, saw that we're going to have this conversation, my mind kept racing, and I'm very, very, I'm just very interested in knowing how this works. Like, what's the process like?
Okay. Not like we're just going to like pour out all our secrets out there, but I'm just going to
I
give
understand.
some highlights on what we do. So we go out, we reach out to them in hotels, we let them know about the opportunity, the rehabilitation opportunity, and we have an admission officer that takes the girls through some sort of online interview and just sort of takes them through the process of the rehabilitation center, because we don't want a case of, I did not know this is what I came for. So we let them, know about the rudiments and the regiments of the rehabilitation program, that this and this is what you're going to be doing when you come into the rehab. So we usually don't admit anyone that doesn't have like a guarantor, someone that can say, oh, I know this person. Especially if the person is like a minor, we need like someone who will stand as a guardian. So once they come to the rehab and we are certain that this person is ready to go through the rehabilitation program, they sign some documents and all of that. Then we take them through the medical procedure. We do some medical checks on them. We just sort of want to know their medical history. And then we start the rehab program itself. The rehab program is where the major work is. The rehabilitation program is centered around mind reengineering. So what we do is we build the girls, we build their mindset, into a person that can be reintegrated back into the society. We build their mindset into someone, to believe that they can make money without having to sleep around. I remember taking, the girls through some of the programs, and I remember them telling me that they never, have thought that they could do anything aside from sleeping around to make money. And I was really shocked, because one of the things we do in the rehab is we believe in the power of visualization. We show the girls, women, people who are making money, who are doing amazing things out there, even in Nigeria, not just even women, even men, thank God for, places like YouTube and, documentaries and people that are putting their works out there. So we do a lot of YouTube learning, right? So they watch all of these things, they discuss, and they're really shocked to see that people actually, building their business without having to sleep around. There's this material that we use, self-made billionaire women. It highlights I think about 36 women who really made their billions. So we immerse them into that material, and they are usually very stunned that, oh wow, so I can actually make money with my hands. And funny enough, we have one of them even in my house right now who has gone through the rehabilitation program. She's an artisan, a nail artisan. We took her through a skill to make nails and all of that. She's even going to do my nails when we're done with this conversation. So she's doing really well. So basically what we do is we pull down that image of, you need to sell your body before you can earn money, before you can survive. We pull that down in the rehab program. And after pulling it down, we now give them a skill. All right. A skill that they can use to earn money. So that's basically what we do. Thank you.
Okay. So just a bit, further is, I mean, we know that there are those who were involved in sex work out of, they were actually coerced to be, to do this.
Yeah.
So they didn't have a choice. Maybe they were tricked.
Yeah.
Because we've heard of cases where someone comes to tell your mother or your auntie that there's a job somewhere, they were going to take care of you, come leave, and then it was just another avenue to sex traffic you and what have you.
Exactly.
And then you also have another category where it's more like it's voluntary. Like it's not like you're not coerced, but then it looks like that's the only way out of it. So I like to
Yeah.
understand what category of persons are you working with, and how do you get to identify these persons?
Okay. So we've worked with, the categories of people that you mentioned. Um, there's a lady that, she's quite popular. We call her Dubai Girl. That's the name we gave her. Her documentary is even on YouTube. Our father, tricked her into prostitution in Dubai, and she was deported. And thankfully, she met a man of God, Pastor Shola, who recommended my NGO to her, and that's how she got rehabilitated, and she's doing really well today. I've also worked with those who encountered, or should I say, got into prostitution voluntarily. Yes. So, how do I differentiate them? I differentiate them by
No,
interviewing them
no, I'm
and
saying
let them.
okay. The question is, how do you identify them? Like, how do you get to meet them? Where do you get to meet them and, speak to them to
Okay,
get to the
I
point of
already
rehabilitation?
said that we do outreaches,
Okay.
all right, to brutels. So let me also add this. Due to our PR work and our social media positioning, people already know what we're doing. So they send some of these girls to us. Yeah. So yeah, they sent some of these girls to us. Someone, like I was sharing the story of the Dubai girl, someone recommended the my NGO, the rehabilitation program to her, picked her from Lagos, sent her to Osun State to my foundation. Yeah, I believe I answered that correct.
No, so go on. You had your thoughts with the Dubai girl, so I'm quite
Yeah,
interested.
so we work with people who were tricked. We work with people who voluntarily entered into prostitution. And to be honest, I find myself really proud of those who entered into prostitution voluntarily, because that is where you really have to change their mind. Not just, you don't start by changing their mind. They actually come to us because they want a change of life. So what I do is, when I go to these outreaches, I leave them with a book. The book is called Purple. It's a message of love and hope for girls in prostitution. So we've had, one of them call us and say, "Oh, I read your book, Purple. I've been doing prostitution for about 2 years now. I want to quit. What can I do next?" So that's like one of the ladies that we have, our first testimony. She did that. She reached out to us, and my NGO, rehabilitated her. We got her an apartment, sponsored a child to school. That was in 2022. This is 2025. She's doing so well today. She has not gone back to prostitution. In fact, she will say to me that I rather up water on my head than allow any man to sleep with me again. So what I do is, basically, I let them know that there is more to life. There is more to, their life. There is more to them as a woman than what they're doing. I make them understand that there is more to them. This is not just who you're meant to be. This is not all there is to you. You're not a sex object. You're not a sex to, there is a purpose, you are meant to fulfill. There is something about you that is so unique, and you cannot end up like this. So they usually just, sort of receive that message, receive that ideology, and say, "You know what, I'm tired." And let me even say this: the job itself is tiring, because this most people don't even know what sex workers go through. They work even when they're on their periods. They insert cotton wool. There's nothing like, "I'm on my period, I can't work." They insert cotton wool, so that the blood will not flow. They work, day and night. I don't want to just talk about the vulgar things they go through, but the work itself is tiring. And I feel like if we bring out these girls and interview them, 100, if you interview 100 of them, 90 of them will tell you they are actually tired of the job. I still had the chair lady of a brothel call me today, asking me when are they coming to the rehab. So these ladies, they want to quit. Yeah.
I mean, I must say that you and your organization are really doing a great job. But I'm also very curious about, the society that we find ourselves where it looks as though, no, not necessarily looks as though, I mean, sex has been commodified. And again, you also hear the saying that prostitution is actually the oldest profession. So all of this phrase. So how do you go about this kind of mindset, ideology, the commodification of sex, and the fact that you get to say that, oh, I mean, prostitution is a long time profession. It's been in existence as before civilization and what have you. So how does your organization and how do you get to work around this in the course of you trying to rehabilitate these girls or women and reintegrate them into the society?
Okay. So while they, they come up with that ideology of, prostitution is the oldest profession and all of that, I let them know that according to research, prostitution is one of the world's top 10 most deadliest job. It is risky. You can lose your life. And truthfully, they would attest to the fact that, yeah, they've even had friends who have died on the job. One of our beneficiary that is out of prostitution was telling me that, she was just showing me an RIP of a fellow friend, a former colleague rather, that spent 20 years of her life in prostitution and she died, on the job. So I let them know that this job is risky. You can lose your life, you can end up, with sexually transmitted disease, and for those who are seeing beyond just, surviving, they really want to thrive. Yeah, they say, you know what, I'm interested. I want to come out of this job.
As much as it's okay to, look at the government and say, hey, there should be some legislation and policy direction in this light, but don't you think that the family is at the core of all of this?
Yeah, my last conversation, it's just I didn't want to repeat myself. I was here the month of March during Girl Child Women International period, and that was really what I focused on. I was sharing how that the family, the family centered, the girl child needs to be raised in such a way that she doesn't see herself as a sex tool. She doesn't get to see herself that, oh, when I need money, the only thing I can do is to, sleep around. I feel like the family should really do a lot of mentorship and grooming when it comes to the girl child. I spoke about that, and that's so true. They usually say that, charity begins at home, or begins from home. So yeah, the family and the government, they should work hand in hand. Yeah.
But again, just like you said that government should be involved in policy direction, legislation, don't you think that is more like, they would have to actually, bite their nose to spite their face and all of that?
Okay, so that's where you have to make it really cashy and say, oh, instead of just coming with guns and all of that and say, all of you, nobody should come out on the streets, from 9 to whatever, you can put a proposition and say, oh, those of you that want to learn this skill, the government is willing to sponsor you, the government is, we are just an NGO and we are making our difference in the lives of these girls in our own little way. So imagine if the government and even as a nation, they come together. Look at Dubai. Dubai deported one of our girls back to Nigeria. They saw them on the street. They deported, her and some other people. Because those things don't thrive there. They're not closing their eyes. When they see you outside, they will deport you. But nobody's doing anything. I don't think anybody's really doing anything like that in Nigeria.
No, I as much as I don't, so it doesn't look like, I'm speaking fallacy. But I also think that there's been, I don't have the facts right here, so I'll just leave it at that. But I think that there's some effort, in terms of, government at different levels, different states, trying to arrest all of that. But let me come to another part. Now, you are talking about this category of persons who are on the street, who are prostituting, or, using their bodies for sex. What about the other ones that are very fanciful, good looking, and this transaction is going? I mean, how do you intend to reach them? Do you also
doing this because they need the money? They need the money. Some of them are doing it because they've chosen that lifestyle. But I'm really hoping that with what we have, in the ropes, the plans that we have, that we would eventually get to change their mindset and draw them into a higher kind of life, a different part of life, and tell them that, see, hey, this part of life is not going to take you anywhere. There is something better that you can do with your life than what you're doing right now. So yeah, we have that plan to reach out for them. What we want to do, we want to have like a mentorship program, especially for them. We're not going to put them in the rehab home because these fanciful ones, they have houses, they have, some of them will have cars and all of that. But it's going to be a lot of work, to be honest, right? And it's something we want to really put our feet into and trust God to help us.
So, I mean, just before we close the conversation down, I'd like to find out how, the oppression is going on with you at the grassroots level. How would you describe your relationship with government bodies, including law enforcement agencies and their allies? Would you say that you have encountered any sort of obstacle in the course of your work?
I know that some of these governments at different state levels, they have, women empowerment, scheme and all of that. But I really want to see the work that they are doing. Let's see the work that they are doing. Let's make it really big. Let's make it really loud. Let's go to where, people need the help, and let's go help these girls. Yeah.
So, but for me, I think as much as I would want to agree with your thoughts and submission on this particular issue, I also think that the bulk also lies somewhere. I mean, at the center of all of this is poverty, mostly. Inequality is also at the heart of it. Don't you think that we should also get to a point, this is the point where we get to that junction where we say, in terms of having children, there should be, maybe we need to sit at the table and have this conversation in the church, in the mosques, wherever it is we want to have it, whether there should be legislation, although I no longer believe in policies and formulation, that we need to put a cap on the number of children or
right?
Yes, that we can bring, because when you say you see a child who is on the streets, they're not able to, it's because two adults have actually come together to produce a child that they cannot be responsible for. And then we live in a society where everybody says, oh no, it's okay to have the child because God has given us, the grace to have children. So go ahead and we would definitely take care of the child. And we begin to speak all of the Christianese and all that we know how to speak and, sound very spiritual. But the actuality is that these two adults do not have what it takes to cater for the needs of those children. And so we constantly chunk out kids. You go on the street, you see children that are not being catered for because adults are not responsible for their action. Don't you think that that should be the crux of the conversation, or rather than, because if we get to this part of the divide, then we probably will not have, the reason to say, let's begin to have legislation, let's begin to put all of that in place. Because first off, I know that if a parent is very, very in the know, no one will come to trick you and cajole you that your child should come and stay with somebody because they need to fend. All of that is because resources are not available for parents to actually cater for their needs. I mean, no resources, there's no money, the child needs to survive, so you begin to think that, oh, let them go stay with one auntie, there's one, sister who's somewhere who's going to... And this is how all of this thrives. So my question is this. Should we not get to... Is it not time for us to have the conversation on putting a cap to the children?
I love this conversation.
Yes.
I love where you're coming from. Because
yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Don't you think that it is time for us to get to this point where we say, hey, it would be, we hold ourselves accountable at different levels, at different tables, and say, hey, you can't do this, because we're constantly just being irresponsible.
I think it's Ghana that has that cap. I don't know, I might be wrong, but I know Ghana. I think Ghana has a cap on, the number of children you can just give birth to. I'll come to this, but I would like to say that I like this conversation because when I assembled the 4 beneficiaries we had in our rehab, just sort of, I wanted to know about their family and all of that. I noticed something. There was a huge gap of, parenting. There was this, high level of irresponsibility, just sort of coming from the parents' side. One of them, she said, I think our mom gave birth to 9 or 7 of them, and then they all had to go fend for themselves, had to go stay with one auntie, one this and all of that. Another one too also has the same, history. So I would say that I think the government on the health, sector, they're doing something about it, because I'm a mom of 3, and whenever I go to for and injections and all of that, baby injections, they keep telling us, family planning. They keep educating us about it. So I feel like if they really do a lot of publicity and advocacy around that, just sort of encourage people about family planning, so that people will take it seriously, I feel it will help, to sort of curb the number of children people are just doing out without being responsible for them. On the other hand, you would see someone who would say that, oh, I'm the 6th child of my family, and even though they had lots of children, but thank God they did not put a cap on the number of kids we're going to have, because I have grown to become someone really great and I've become a blessing. So this is what I would say. The Bible says that the poor you will always have amongst you. We'll always have the poor amongst us. It's the reality of the day. It's the time that we are in. It's not even today. Right from time, poor people have been, around us. It is what we are going to do to help the poor people. That should be the crux of the conversation. What are we going to do to help the poor people amongst us? That's what we should be discussing about. Yeah.
Doreen, thank you so much. I wish we can have this conversation, but hopefully we will, have it in a different, angle. Thank you so much for being part of the show tonight.